Cherokee Chapbooks. The Secret History of the Cherokee Indians. Written by Donald Yates. Narrated by Rich Crankshaw. Chapter 1. The Hopi's Elder White Brother. History is nothing but the soul's old wardrobe. Heinrich Heine. All the lights in the house of the high priests of American anthropology are out. All the doors and windows are shut and securely fastened. They do not sleep with their windows open, for fear that a new idea might fly in. We have rung the bell of reason. We have banged on the door with logic. We have thrown the gravel of evidence against their windows. But the only sign of life in the house is an occasional snore of dogma. We're very much afraid that no one is going to come down and let us into the warm, musty halls, where the venerable old ideas are nailed to the walls. These biting words were penned by Harold Sterling Gladwin in Men Out of Asia, the famous archaeologist's most popular non-technical work. Published in 1947, Gladwin's book presented a maverick view of the peopling of the Americas, identifying 5 migrations of diverse races, including Negritos and Austronesians, to the New World. Heretically, he placed the first migration as early as 25,000 years ago, and argued that the earliest colonists were Australoid. The reaction of his colleagues in the anthropological establishment was stony silence, tinged with harumphs and shaws of injured pride. Gladwin illustrated Men Out of Asia with droll cartoons by Campbell Grant, making fun of the sacred keepers of knowledge at the Peabody Museum at Harvard, Carnegie Foundation, and Smithsonian Institution. In one, the Dean of Southwest and Maya Archaeology, Alfred V. Kinner, is depicted as Dr. Fuddy-Duddy, sitting in academic robes atop a factory whistle, sounding the alarm of illogical chronology. In another, a bespectacled Gladwin and his Tweety friend Professor Ernest Hooton of Harvard are shown in the academic doghouse by request. The establishment is still uncomfortable about Gladwin, who died in 1983 after a distinguished career of more than 60 years. Although willing to praise his meticulous fieldwork on the Hohokam at Snaketown and exacting methodologies developed at the research center he founded at Gila Pueblo outside Globe, Arizona, they do not know quite what to say about his conclusions and hypotheses, which grew more adamant toward the end of his life. The destroying angel of unorthodox theories, Stephen Williams of the Peabody Museum, can only think that Gladwin succumbed to his whimsies and grew soft-headed in his old age. I have always regarded Men Out of Asia, Williams loftily declares in Fantastic Archaeology, as sort of a spoof. Thomas Mills lived for many years on the Hopi Indian Reservation in North Arizona, where he and his mother opened and operated the cultural center at Second Mesa. A close friend was White Bear, the traditionalist who helped Frank Waters compile the Book of the Hopi in 1963. Mills was on familiar terms with other elders, Kiva chiefs, and artisans. In 2001, he wrote a little book of his own called The Truth. It was an attempt to reconcile some of the conflicting answers he had received from his sources. How did a desert-dwelling, isolated people know of the Earth's spherical shape and rotation in space? What was the long journey in boats from across the sea they spoke of? And who were the ant people they took refuge with after the destruction of the First, Second, and Third Worlds? Eventually, Mills felt he had some answers from Egyptian religion. He came to believe that the Hopi were Egyptians, old souls in Native America, charged with the task of praying for the safety of the world. The delicate balance of affairs in human destiny depended on a Hopi prayer feather, or paho. Paho seems to be an Egyptian word. Embedded in Hopi customs and rituals are apparently many traces of ancient Old World civilizations. I thought of a time several years ago when Hopi elders David Moa and Ronald Wadsworth came to give a talk at the university where I was teaching. I noticed David preferred to sleep on the floor in our guest room instead of the pull-out bed. That was quite Indian, of course, but his act of leaving a crust of bread on the piano bench when he departed was not. This practice is rooted in an ancient Greek religious gesture of offering bread and milk to the household gods in a strange home. Author Hamilton Tyler noted several Greek customs among the Pueblo Indians. The plinth-like figure of Massa evokes the armless guardian statues, or Hermes, used by the Greeks as boundary markers. Hermes is both god of roads and boundaries, and conductor of the dead to the underworld. A number of students of Pueblo religion, Tyler admitted, have remarked that it was something like Greek religion. Yet after uncovering astonishing analogies between the two religions, he concluded that there is no actual connection between these two gods, who lived centuries apart and on different sides of the globe. Other parallels Tyler dismissed, which seem compelling to me, are 1. The Zuni's harlequin-like mudheads, or koyemshi, who arrived across bridges to taunt and harass people at the ceremony, just as did the clowns released on the sacred way between Athens and Eleusis at comic festivals. The word koyemshi seems indeed to be a corruption of the Greek for comedians, Latin komiki. 2. Hermes and Massa's playing of tricks on other gods. 3. Their gift of song. 4. A body of tales about them as thieves. 5. their status as the inventors of fire-making and as fire gods. 6. Their common role of leading the host to war. And 7. Their respective positions as fertility gods. In addition to these correspondence, I propose there is an echo of Greek religious rite in the Zunese Shalako, the ghostly ancestral figure who initiates re-entry of the Kachinas into the village at the winter solstice. Shalakos are costumed as luminous white armless figures 10 feet high, similar in appearance to the Hopi depiction of Masaw. The Zuni Shalako seems to me to invoke the Egyptian god Osiris, a symbol of regeneration often portrayed as a linen-wrapped mummy. During the Shalako ceremony, the Koyemshi act up and poke fun at the spectators. In the Greek ritual, the Maenads and Bacchae roam around the crowd and feign, tearing to pieces beasts and even humans who come in their way. Their counterparts at Zuni rend to bits live mice and rabbits and carry the small creatures about in their mouths. Egyptians have long been suspected of visiting the shores of America and even planting colonies here. Whether reached by east or west, the other hemisphere was regarded by them as the realm of Osiris, god of the underworld, as explained by Gunnar Thompson. From the vantage point of Egypt, the western Atlantic lies on the opposite side of the globe. Their expression, inverted waters, is an accurate description of the western Atlantic, and it confirms Egyptian knowledge of the Earth's spherical shape. Likewise, the realm of Osiris was known as the underworld because it was located beneath Egypt on the spherical Earth. Between both worlds flowed the two-ways ocean river. Egyptian mariners traveled west to the realm of Osiris and returned to the Mediterranean via a two-ways ocean river flowing both directions, the North Atlantic Current. Could the Egyptians have traveled to the realm of Osiris also by crossing the Pacific from Asia? Excited by the thought that there might be a real connection between the Hopi and Egyptians, I compiled a list of Hopi words that seem to have the same sound and meaning in Egyptian. Nearly all prove to be archaic terms relating to tribal ceremonies and religious history. The Hopi's main language is classified as Uto-Aztecan, a Native American linguistic phylum, but the formation of plurals with N and M points to Semitic or Afro-Asiatic affinities. Specialized religious terms in Hopi are relics or intrusions, comparable evidently to fossilized words in the old language of the Cherokee. Such vocabulary evokes hieratic or priestly languages, like Sanskrit in India or Latin in Western Europe. With this daring key, events recounted in the Book of the Hopi became crystal clear. Of the various former world ages or epochs recalled by the Hopi, one of them, Kuskurza, is specifically said to be an ancient name for which there is no modern meaning. Reading the names of these epochs in ancient Egyptian gives them true significance. They are 1. World destroyed by fire, Tokpela. 2. Time long ago, Thakpa. 3. Age of abandon, Kuskurza. And 4. Age of the strangers from afar, the fourth world or present, Tuwakasi. Thus the creator, Taiowa, Uto-Aztecan or Tanoan, for man, human, people, as in today's Tehwa, Tihwa, and Tohwa, has his nephew, Sotuknang, and Spider-Woman give life to the innocent first people in the Eden called Takpela. They are led astray by the talker, and Katoya, the handsome one, Satan, the deceiver. The animals draw apart in fear, and they begin to fight one another, in neglect of the Creator's plan. Sotuknang decides to annihilate the world by opening up the volcanoes and raining fire upon it, but not before saving some of the faithful by leading them to a big mound where the ant people live. The Egyptian word for this refuge the Hopi will use to survive 2 further holocausts translates literally as subsistence in the pyramid of the ants. Pyramid, in fact, means anthill. After the end of Tokpela, world destroyed by fire, the people emerge to the second world, called Dark Midnight, but they begin to become preoccupied with materialistic concerns as before. They ignore once again the commandments of the Creator. Sotuknang and Spider-Woman seal a select few in the underground world of the ant people and direct the celestial twins to leave their posts at the north and south poles. The Earth spins around off its axis, rolls over twice, and freezes into solid ice. After it warms and the earth and seas are revived, Sotuknang brings the remnants of mankind out of the ant kiva to emerge into the third world, Kuskurza. True to its name, Kuskurza is full of big cities, jewels, copper, tobacco, and speeding vessels called Patuvota. The Bo clan behind the marvels corrupts everybody with wickedness, until finally Sotuknang and Spider-Woman intervene and put an end to the age of abandon with a devastating flood. This time the faithful are loaded onto reed boats. Spider-Woman guides them to the fourth world, age of the strangers from afar. They dwell in stages on a succession of islands and continue to travel toward the northeast until they reached the new place of emergence. Hopi elders believe this to have been the coast of California, but it may have been at the mouth of the Colorado River on the Sea of Cortez. For the Hopi enact a coming-of-age ritual each year by sending youths on a foot race to collect salt here from a site associated with their ancestors. In former times, there were several large inland seas, and the river system of the region was different. Looking to the west and the south, the people could see sticking out of the water the islands upon which they had rested. They are the footprints of your journey, continued Sutuknung. The tops of the high mountains of the Third World, which I destroyed, now watch. As the people watched them, the closest ones sank under the water, then the next, until all were gone, and they could see only water. See, said Sutuknung, I have washed away even the footprints of your emergence, the stepping stones which I left for you. Down to the bottom of the seas lie all the proud cities, the flying Patavotas, and the worldly treasures corrupted with evil, and those people who found no time to sing praises to the Creator from the tops of their hills. Once the people make landfall in their new home, the old gods, Sutuknung and Spider-Woman, depart and leave the emergent Hopi to their own devices. This is a clue to the origin of this cosmic tale, which must have arisen in Sundaland, or island Indonesia, among what the Cherokee call the Wise Ones of Seg. Indeed, throughout the entire Southwest Pacific Ocean, cosmologies focus on the figures of the Father Sky, Sutuknung, and Earth Mother, Spider-Woman. The former, usually portrayed as warlike and destructive, the latter as the creator of all the arts of civilization that sustain and nourish the people, as, for instance, weaving, basket-making, and agriculture. The central role of the spider as the helper of mankind is preserved in two Cherokee tales. In one, Grandmother Spider steals the sun. It is the tiny water spider who swims across the water to an island where the fire burns in order to bring warmth and comfort to her freezing people. In another, the same water spider dives to bring up dirt and form the new country inhabited by the people. We may therefore best understand the Book of the Hopi as codifying a sweeping vision of world history, created by a founder civilization that came from Eden in the East, to use Stephen Oppenheimer's term. In the mythic underpinnings of the society, there had been an age of man destroyed by volcanic eruptions, Tokbela, followed by global darkness, undoubtedly the fallout of such a cataclysm, Tokpa, the Second World. This age too is destroyed, this time by ice, with the celestial twins forsaking their access. Scientists today acknowledge the effect of the poles in causing ice ages. Kuskurza, the Third World of Abandon, ensues after the melting of the ice, but it quickly ends in floods. Its trademark is the boat, Patuvota, the old worlds having been destroyed by fire, by icy darkness, and by rising waters. The survivors make their way to the fourth and present world, where they are called, in Egyptian, the people from foreign lands. Hohokam, the name of the Southwest's mother civilization, means people from the sea in ancient Egyptian. From this we may surmise that Egyptian boats made of reed conveyed the islanders to their new home. There the people meet Masa, who becomes their guardian and protector. He is described as black and ugly, scratching out a humble existence in Oribe, cliff town in ancient Greek, on Second Mesa. He declines to be their leader, but gives them permission to stay. First, however, they must start their migrations to the end of the earth. Paso, another Egyptian word. The name Masa is the same as ancient Egyptian Masa, Libyan. The Hopi say Oribe was the original home, which they translate as rock on high, but which is formed apparently from a Greek word meaning boundary, landmark, covenant stone. Inasmuch as fire has the sense of a group of Indian people, their discovery of Masa sitting with his back to them around a fire implies not just one black man, or Libyan, but a nation of them. Another second Mesa town, Shunopavi, is translated as place of the black man, although in Egyptian it means fertile land, field of reeds. This being the main metaphor in their religion for the afterlife or paradise. That these Libyans were of the same stock as ancient soldiers and mariners from the Old World is supported by the fact that a later character in the Book of the Hopi, Horny Toad Woman, tells Masa, I too have a metal helmet. In other words, armor. The various names of the Hopi are also informative. These are Hoki, the secret original ethnonym, which seems to come from the Egyptian word for magicians, Hopi, the peaceful ones, Egyptian for people of the law, and Moki, erroneously glossed as neighboring tribes, derogatory reference to them as despicable people. In actuality, Moki is probably derived from Magi. Aside from Oribe, another trace of the Greek language comes to us from Acoma. A legend there tells of the arrival of its first inhabitants. The story goes that there once lived a boy all by himself on Enchanted Mesa. One day he heard the shouts of a strange people. A town was founded in the spot where the echo was heard. The word Acoma is garbled Spanish, but in the Acoma language, Haku'u is very close to the Greek word echo, related to English acoustic. If Acoma has a hint of Greek, Zuni is pure Libyan. Its very form, Ashui, refers to the oasis of Siwa, in the land the ancients called Ammonia, after its patron god of the sun, Amun. Barry Fell sees the Zuni language as having a large Libyo-Egyptian element, similar to Coptic, to which have been added Ptolemaic roots brought to the Egyptian and Libyan lands by Greek settlers in the wake of the Spartan colonization of Libya in the 8th century BC and the conquest of Egypt by the Ptolemies during the last 4 centuries BC. There are also roots of Nilotic origin. He adds, introduced by Nubian slaves. Perhaps a reason why the Zunis traditionally divide themselves into a red and black half in their village. Zuni religion owes much to the worship of Amun as practiced in the land of Ammonia, with its capital of Siwa. An early observer of the Zuni, Herman ten Cate, found the tribe to have been familiar with the art of silversmithing for some time, and highly skilled at polishing shells and turquoise to make necklaces. Moreover, they surpass all other North American tribes in making of pottery, especially large oyas for holding water. Their painting was black on white, and their decorations ran to meanders, spirals, and wavy lines, he said. Other signs of Zuni's Old World origins are found in the name of its priesthood, Shi Wanikwi, people of Siwa, and the place name of an outlying village where apparently the Canaanite element among them settled, Kianan. The Zuni's tribal name is Children of the Sun. Ten Cate notes, in addition to their everyday spoken language, the Zunis have a more ancient language, known only to the highest priests, in which the prayers of their order are recited. He also reports that in Zuni tradition their ancestors came from the west in boats. That they were aware of the sea during their earlier wanderings seems to be the case, not only because they worship it, but because they are at the same time familiar with the octopus, or one of the other cephalopods. Through tradition, they are also familiar with earthquakes. They are labeled with the name, the sound from the shell of the gods. The tradition in this respect refers to how the ocean was whipped to a fury by the sound of the shell of the gods. Moreover, in former times they undertook pilgrimages to the coast of the Pacific Ocean for the purpose of collecting sacred shells, just as the Moki Hopis did. In Greek mythology, Poseidon, the god of oceans, creates earthquakes. Triton, a fish-tailed demigod, worshipped in particular in Cyrene, blows the conch trumpet that controls the waves and sounds the approach of an earthquake. It is hard to imagine a better set of clues. Libyan settlement in North America is apparent from North African writing systems, building styles, and languages. The evidence for it ranges from a famous tortoise-shaped subterranean stone chamber in Upton, Massachusetts, to pre-alphabetic writing in a stick script called Ogham scattered across the American West. Inscriptions in Ogham, Greek, Kufic Arabic, Phoenician, Tifinagh, a Berber alphabet, Celto-Iberian, and Egyptian all point to the Libyans. Many of the remains of the mixed Berber, Semitic, Greek, Egyptian peoples in the rock record have been identified and deciphered, but many more have been overlooked or explained away. The monumental New England beehive chambers, Fell believed to be in the style of Berber kivas, were dismissed as colonial root cellars. In 1994, Gloria Farley, an epigrapher, published the results of nearly 50 years of exploration in and around her native state of Oklahoma. The massive book was titled In Plain Sight. A second volume was anticipated at the time of her death in 2006. In Plain Sight provides a good look at these Native Americans who were not who they were supposed to be, who used metal when they ought to have been still in the Stone Age, and who had writing despite the denial of it to them by modern-day anthropology. Chapter titles tell it all. They came in ships. They signed their names. They claimed the land, the trail of the Egyptians. They knew the sky. They mourned their dead. When my wife and I first moved to New Mexico, we immediately paid a visit to Bandelier National Archaeological Monument, 12 miles southeast of Los Alamos. The general impression it gives is a Greek, Roman, or Tunisian site. How did the people who lived here hew all those blocks of sandstone, slate, and even granite and basalt? Tens of thousands of squared-off stones were required to build Bandelier, and hundreds, if not thousands, of metal tools. Obsidian, the ranger told us. But obsidian shatters on stone. Nor can stone be used to chop stone. An archaeological experiment attempting to do this produced an 80% degradation of tools within a few hours. And as though this were not enough, after being pointed out the path to what the ranger called Quetzalcoatl's cave, we stood face to face with a deeply incised example of Ogham. Peeking into a cliff dwelling down the way, we saw Tifinagh writing in a painted plaster ceiling. Ogham has been recognized in Celtic lands for several centuries, but it was Barry Fell who first studied its remote origins. A seminal document is the short Ogham tract added to the end of a medieval Irish manuscript, kept today in the Library of Trinity College, Dublin. This treatise in the Great Book of Ballymote contains specimens of Ogham arranged geographically with Gaelic and Latin translations beside them. Its rediscovery proved to be the Rosetta Stone for ancient North African writing. Fell was able, through this link, to decipher different versions of Libyan, Egyptian, Punic, Ibiru-Celtic, and a welter of other languages. For instance, a script called African by Balimot Scribe is an Iberian variety used by Semitic speakers in southern Spain during the first millennium BCE. Fell published a chart comparing the oldest styles with the fully developed and more familiar Irish style of the Middle Ages. Predictably, his discoveries were ridiculed. Archaeology students today are still cautioned by their professors not to cite anything that appears to be prehistoric writing in America. Ever since Major Powell directed the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology, there has been an academic ban on such reckless speculation. I was not surprised to discover upon my return to Santa Fe that among the hundreds of books, surveys, and dissertations written about Bandelier, not one mention was made of the marks on the rock face outside Quetzalcoatl's cave. One of my friends suggested it was a place where the Bandelierian Indians sharpened their arrows. The Bandelier inscription is a textbook case of Old Ogham, and unquestionably was produced with the aid of metal tools. From right to left, in the fashion of Hebrew, it reads QHTZHLCTLHTLH. The marks are in a style similar to a specimen discovered on Manana Island, near Monhegan Island, on the coast of Maine. Sometimes called hinged ogham, this is a variety of Bronze Age ogham, quite common in America, corresponding roughly to number 16 in the Irish Ogham tract. The Manana stone states, "Ships from Phoenicia, cargo platform." There are images of Quetzalcoatl in the rock art record of the American Southwest. Quite a few, actually, although only a small number have been adequately elucidated. Crosses are signs of his cult.